How's Evan doing?
Look at and say, this tells us what the severity of this variant is and how effective our vaccines are. It's really important for us to be cautious here because
Somebody watching TV in the background?
Oh, I got Christmas music on. Sorry.
But again, we want to use what we know now. And there's a big difference there between now and a year ago.
Hey, John,
Hi, Brian.
are you going to the meet this weekend?
Which one?
December the 4th.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, the meet director forgot to tell me the instructions, but I'm there now.
Okay.
Okay. Anyway, we'll get going. I've asked Louise to put together a presentation from the Paralympics. I've seen some of her slides before, but not to cover everything, but it's what's interesting from a tech management perspective. And then the other thing is comments back on the document that I put together. So Louise is dialing in and using her internet smartly, and the show is yours.
I got dual screen, so what do you see?
We see your editing screen with but it's not in slideshow.
Great. Why won't it go? There we go. Let's go slideshow. From the beginning. There we go. Perfect.
Oh, technology. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, we don't need to see that my microphone is accessed because we're not really using my microphone. I have dual screens, but I have one below the other, so I'm still not used to going from one to the other.
Oh, okay.
So the first part of this is just my impressions of going to Tokyo, and then I get into more technical manager kind of stuff. I didn't spend a lot of time with technical manager stuff this time. Fine. So, Olympic Stadium, yeah, I was not prepared for the experience of walking into the Olympic Stadium. I mean, I've been to big stadiums before, but it was just like, I'm sure my jaw dropped and thinking, it's like I'm walking on holy ground. It's like, it's Mecca or Bethlehem or I don't know, but it just kind of freaked me out for a few minutes. I had some of the more seasoned officials saying, oh yeah, but you didn't get to experience it with people there. And I said, well, you know what, it was still pretty awesome as far as I was concerned.
So this is your first Olympics then, Louise?
My first Olympics, yes, or Paralympics, yeah.
Yep.
So we walked into the stadium at approximately 25th of August at 11:45, and so they were just busy transitioning from closing ceremonies, getting it ready for a track meet, right? So by 18:30, right, it was covered up again, and by the next morning we had grass. And by a day later, they were already watering the grass. I mean, to me, it was some of the logistics that I had never thought about before. Like, hey, that's why there's always at least one day after opening and closing ceremonies, because they have to convert the stadium. And what a unbelievable job that is done behind the scenes. It kind of blew my mind. It probably got mowed too. I never got a picture of it being mowed. So in this picture, there is 17 international officials and 237, if I remember correctly, national officials. And for the most part, these are the same ones. They did the Olympics and they did Paralympics. They're dedicated officials. And now there we go, that works. Okay. So on our tour of the facilities, we got to see Technical Information Center. obviously we weren't doing a lot of work at that point. One of the throws crew, the ones in blue were the volunteers, the ones in red were all officials. This was, for the most part, all the people that worked the 2 call rooms. Yeah, they had people down, like tie-down crew, like holy cow, they had a lot of people for a tie-down crew. What did they? Someone said the most that was ever there at one time was 13 doing a tie-down. Starters assistants, where we would have what, 1, 2, maybe 3. Look at how many they got. I mean, it's not that they were not qualified, but they were volunteers, including vacuuming off the track. They thought it was funny that I was taking pictures of them. And these were these guys were out there doing programming. So what they're programming is the implement return vehicles. Everyone thinks they're remote controlled. These were not remote controlled, they're robotic. And so those guys were out there setting up the GPS for that particular event, and then it's all done automatically. When they put the implement in it, they touch the button on it, and then it does all the rest all by itself. Technology's just amazed me. I could have sat there for hours watching those little things go back and forth. They had technology all over the place, and some of it we got to see more because some of it would have been used to, interaction with the spectators, which there was none of. Right? They had little robots bringing you towelettes, and they had roads for them, and one of our officials, they freaked her right out because this trash can came up to her and asked her if she had rubbish that she wanted to put in it. So, I mean, as an official, as an ITO, we aren't representing our country. We're kind of like Switzerland, but it is so cool when you get to see your flag. You kind of covered for each other if possible. If someone's country was having an extra special moment, then, like I think, for example, a guy was in the call room when Belgium got their first and I think only medal of the games. He wanted to go see it, so you cover for him, and yeah, we're neutral, but we're supporting everybody's love of their country. So it was pretty excited every time you got to see the flag. And so I think I took a picture every time I got to see it. I have an awesome vantage point for this event. I was up in the media stands. I was umpiring for that event, and so, yeah, that was cool. So I had first met Greg when he was at Canadian Championships in Ottawa, and I was so glad that I was standing beside I think she was a first aid volunteer, and she wanted her picture taken and talk to him, and I said, well, just talk to him, right? So, I love that picture because it just shows, like, this guy is, I don't know how tall he is, 7? He's got to be at least 7 feet tall. He is a big boy. So again, I got to kind of sneak behind the scenes, and so I was there when they're ready to walk out for his medal ceremony. Again, a vantage point that wouldn't normally be seen. Yeah, seeing the flag was cool, but listening to the anthem was even cooler. That was the second medal that day. That was for Brent Lakatos. Oaken, they weren't fans. They were, teammates, coaches. Again, behind the scenes, there was supposed to be no media, and I knew I wasn't supposed to take a picture of this, but I said to one of the volunteers, is it okay if I take a picture? And she says, oh, sure, not a problem. So I quick took the picture and got the heck out of there before someone official came along and asked me what the heck I was doing. So at the end of every Olympics, Paralympics, you have one, official night. Everyone wears their formals and you take pictures, and we had fun. I thought I was pretty fortunate for the marathon, so the marathon for the Olympics, they shipped up to Hokkaido. Can't remember where it was in Hokkaido, but anyhow, so they hopefully getting cooler temperatures. I don't think it worked for them. But so the marathon for the Paralympics was on what the course that should have been for the Olympics. So I got the furthest out, I got the most scenic point, and then that tallest building is, what they call it, their Sky Tree. So this was just one of the chase cars, very futuristic. Every intersection had, the number of police and volunteers along this route was mind-boggling. And those buses are actually police buses. They have a lot of police buses. One of the statistics I read was Japan has more vending machines per capita than anywhere else in the world. Yeah, I believe it. They're just everywhere you look, there's vending machines. During the wheelchair portion. A couple of our officials, well, he didn't care, but she was pretty pumped to have breakfast outside of Tiffany's. And I have yet to find out, this, you can see their refreshment stations, but that building, I'm not, doesn't even look like a building, it looks like a giant. So as the marathon finished, then one of the kind of chase vehicles was a bus that came to pick up the ITOs along the route. So we're following that, not that far behind the athletes. And some of the spectators were still there. And so then we discovered, or I discovered that, yeah, you wave at them and they're just so thrilled that somebody waves at them. So that was the 2-hour ride back to the stadium. We waved at the spectators. So much fun. My biggest thrill was I actually got one of the military guys to wave at me. That's to amuse me, I guess. Number one topic by the officials at a meet is always food. So this is a traditional Japanese thing. It's called inari sushi. It's rice inside of there in a kind of a bean curd wrapper. I've always loved this in every meal we had it. So I had this, I had Coca-Cola, there was chocolate. It was just like I died and gone to heaven. So, technical manager stuff. And besides, I just love that picture. He did an awesome job on that. So, the facility itself, yeah, pretty cool facility. Everyone loved how the stands had looked like there was people in it when there really wasn't people in them. So with an open stadium, yeah, you get birds in it. So that night I was out judging javelin flats. I think this stupid flock of birds, I think, circled me 3 times just walking out to the landing area. I didn't know, didn't have an opinion on birds before, but after that, yeah, I'm not a fan. So cool stadium because they had, between the field of play and the eating area, they had a walkway. So you can see down here was, you could, except for around the media area, you could walk around the whole stadium without being detected. And so you get a glimpse there of the other purpose of this was all the cords. I'm sure there was even more there for the Olympics, but the number of cords there blew my mind. Was there five levels that can accommodate cords there, plus the stuff that's looped on the sides. This was the other thing that just totally intrigued me. It had this little trap door in the doors, and I'm thinking, I never did find out what it was for. Was it to let the rats out at night? I don't know. So this is some of the facility stuff. I mean, all the piles of AstroTurf they had, and the big fans, and one son-in-law is a heavy-duty mechanic, works on John Deere equipment, so I had to show him all the John Deere stuff that they were using for the facilities. So to take the tour of the facility now, starting at the warm-up track, this was kind of cool because it was the same diameter as the competition track. So we didn't have to give the extra lap for the wheelies because they could set their compensators on the warm-up track. So then the path from warm-up track to call room 1, kind of cool touch. They had morning glories lining the whole walkway. And they had messages from the school kids attached to them. Some of them we could read, the majority of them were in Japanese, so we really couldn't read it. This I thought was another cool thing when you thought about it. So he kind of called himself the gatekeeper. So he worked the Olympics and the Paralympics. So every athlete that walked into the call room was let in by that man. And people can say that. So call room 1. Then they went down to call room 2. The road wasn't quite that long, but I'm sure it felt like it for some of them. You came in and you turned the corner, then you went down another level. It was a bit of a hike. So they did provide they had some acronym for them, these people movers that transported, some of the athletes that just couldn't drive. The guy who's driving it this time, I called him Mr. Enthusiasm because, oh my gosh, he was pumped all the time. So call room 2, they had a really cool system for their signage, right? It marked what pod they had to go in when it was time to take them out on field of play. They just picked it up, and that's how they escorted them out. This is another cool touch that we thought. So the relay exchange zones all had numbers on them. So it wasn't you had to get out there and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, this is my lane. It's all numbered right there for you. Cool touch. So quite often when I was umpiring, so you can see here's the beginning of the medium mix zone. Not much room for an umpire down there, so we negotiated to be able to go up into the media zone. So bonus being up there is you didn't have to worry about avoiding cameras because they weren't there, and you're out of the rain too. So that was kind of cool. Then they would go into mix zone. So this was taken before competition started, but you can see every broadcast area had their little booth. That day, I managed to take one picture with no athletes in it. There, they went to post-event control. This is kind of cool. They were writing on the walls. So this was, you can see over here, there's some of the Canadians written on there. This is from the Olympics, but we all just love this. I came last, but I had fun. Now what it should all be about. And this young man, he thought I was taking a picture of him. No, I wasn't taking a picture of him. Taking a picture of his job. He was a medalist hunter. We all got a good laugh over that. Some things just don't translate well to English. Didn't know if he was hunting to shoot them, and then he's carrying the umbrella that you kind of wonder, okay, what are you doing? Equipment room, and I'm sorry to disappoint you. I don't have a lot of pictures of the equipment room, but I didn't ever see a used piece of equipment. It all looked brand new. Their trolleys were really cool. The futuristic looking balls that they used for the, stuff to keep your hands dry. Windsock things, yeah, they had some really cool stuff there. More pictures showing it a little better. Yeah, you can understand why the price tag's so high because it's all brand new. It's all logoed. They were all so good about everything is set up, and they obviously worked nights because when we come in the mornings, it's all ready to roll. This cage was so cool. There's a close-up of it. There you can see it. It's at the far end of the field. They have the netting off of it already, but 15 minutes later, ruined the slide. There it is, set up at the other end of the stadium. Yeah, pretty cool. These were the rails that they had set up for the tie downs, for the seated throws. Yeah, they looked really great because they look like they're all beefed up, but they really weren't that great. They seemed like they had a lot of give to them. It was awesome that they had such big loops on it. There was no problems tying everything down. I think the channel irons that we use in Canada worked better. We can see one with an athlete tied down, and oh my gosh, when she tied down, like look at how many tie down straps they got there. So then this is, I was at long jump there for half a session. So yeah, they had they had 3 plasticine boards on the sidelines, getting them ready to go. And so there was no messing around with it on field of play. They grabbed it, put it out, and changed it out for what's sitting on the side. Yeah, and there's me. I had to say I raked the pits once just to say I did it. These desks I thought were cool. They had this little extra shelf underneath them for putting stuff. And wasn't a big thing, but it's sure pretty nice for the officials working there. So some of the stuff that they had, so we had to measure the tethers, so they had special rulers already set up with little dots on them saying this is how far the spacings were for each. It saved a lot of time. You didn't have to think. You just slapped it against there. You needed to know was right there. This is what they use for measuring the depths of the soles. I honestly didn't get to see them work it, but it was there for. Yeah. I was a call room referee, and so I saw him walking thinking, you don't understand what's going on here. So if you have a weather writer, if you go look at it afterwards, there's already a hole in it. All you have to do is run that string through it and bing, you can change it and you can throw it over your shoulder as carry it in your hands all the time. Pretty cool trick, I thought. And this was one of the coolest pieces of equipment. So they brought it out to clear off the javelin runway, and so you can see it's a massive sponge. It picks it up, puts it in the bucket, and then you go over to the gutter and you just put that out and it runs out there into the gutter. So it took a little bit of time, not a lot for it to drain, but that soaked up the water better than anything I've ever seen. Lots of pictures, thinking, guy's got to be able to make one of them. But yeah, they had fancy technology, but I was pretty proud, not my idea, but I just thought this was brilliant. So for throwing frames, they have to be level, or if they're not level, the front has to be higher than the back. So we had a few of them that the front was lower. So taped underneath there is water bottle caps. They had the brilliant technology, but they also had the ingenuity to know how to fix stuff in a hurry. These little things I thought would be absolutely perfect for, you know, guys running stuff all over like technical managers. Never did see them used, but you know, and a lot of times those guys were out there was when the rest of us weren't there. So maybe they used them. They were local. I assume they used them at some point. I thought, very cool piece of equipment. I just got a couple of fun pictures, or just a fun picture. Any questions?
That was awesome, Louise. Was it as hot for your games or?
No. Yes and no. It started off hot, but then I think it was, I don't remember what day was which, but I think it was pretty well 1st of September, bang, it's like someone flipped a switch. So the first night, it, you know, it rained, sprinkled, and everyone thought it was awesome because it cooled it down a little bit. It's still warm, but it wasn't so blistering hot, and yeah, it just didn't quit. So you could notice in some of those pictures, there is just a lot of moisture sitting around.
Yeah, I saw some of that.
And you're not happy, right? Oh, it's too hot. Oh, it's too much rain. Whatever. It was. I mean, the weather didn't. The odd athlete was complaining about the rain, But for the most part, they didn't care. They were just all so happy to be there and finally be competing that the weather didn't mean anything.
Okay, awesome. So I'll be showing my screen in a moment, I believe. So I sent out a first kick at the can of a document for communicating to meet directors of different things that they may or may not have thought about when it comes to tech management and all the requirements and the responsibilities. So has everybody had a chance to look at it? Whoops.
Yeah.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, I've looked at it.
Okay, so can I share my screen now, Serge? What happened to this? Visuals, there we are. So share screen. Window. And that one. So did that share my screen or not?
No.
No,
No. Okay.
It kind of looks like you're not set up to share.
Yeah, quite possible, and I didn't hear theirs there either. Okay, so the document itself, I put it together. Just take any feedback that you have. It might be better if you actually marked it up and sent it back to me for the specifics, but first of all, is there any topics that we're missing within that document? Or
It's in the drop, right? Where is it in the Dropbox?
I'm sorry?
It's in the Dropbox, right? Meet Director's Guide?
Yeah. That link should have taken you to the document.
Larry, I
You
was
have it?
going, oops.
Sure. Go ahead, John.
I was going to say that you mentioned how tech management supposedly is in charge of ensuring that the electronic distance measurement stuff had the appropriate certification. Mike Illingworth reminded me that in theory, the photo timing stuff, we should also make sure that that has the appropriate certification. But usually that is left to whoever is the service provider, just
Mhm.
like the EDM stuff is usually left to a service provider.
Okay. So this document doesn't go to the national level. It only goes to the provincial level.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen the service provider there for much of this.
Yeah.
So,
And there's also supposed to be a scientific role as well that I've never seen at a provincial meet.
so John, what do you mean by the service provider?
It's whoever is providing the equipment.
Is this what you want?
The same kind of concept. I've run across it a number of times where we have a number of people, particularly in photo timing, who have come in and do not necessarily, having come out of photo timing myself, they don't necessarily set up the equipment appropriately. They don't necessarily enter things so that the results come out the way they should. And, I know a number of times when I've been at a meet as a technical manager and I've tried to say something about it, the meet director usually comes down and says, well, that's none of your business. And yet when I go to an international meet, I'm told that to a certain extent it is. And I know when I did the photo timing for the World Juniors in Sudbury, certainly that technical manager was at Mike Ellingsworth and I quite a bit to make sure that things ran the way they were supposed to. And in that case, it was Seco that was the service provider. And we happened to be the two people that were working with them from Canada. So I think what John's concerned about is that there does not seem to be any appropriate oversight for the people who do photo timing and electronic measurement. And should it be the technical manager, or should that be the role of someone else who actually does it?
So if we think about provincial meets and the resourcing of those, John, you've been on both sides of the fence, ready to bring your own equipment and set it up. And we look to you to make sure it's set up correctly. And then we go to other meets that somebody else that we may or not be familiar with the photo timing. But it needs to be validated. And I know I've never done that. Is there, like, it's a pretty complex procedure to be able to validate that set up right. You know, you don't have to know how to set it up. You know how to validate that it's been set up. Is there some words like that, John, that you're aware of? Or?
Yeah, no, what is Bob will tell you, if you walk on the other side of the track from the camera, you can eyeball whether the camera is put up correctly so that vertically over the front edge of the finish line. At one of the meets outside of Toronto this summer, I was supposedly combined events referee, and I walked by the camera and they had both the primary and secondary cameras on the same side. And there was about a foot difference in placement in terms of where it was in relation to the finish line. And when I mentioned it to the photo timer, he says, it doesn't matter as long as the picture looks correct. And the pictures are correct.
Which tells you they're incompetent.
Yes.
Well, yeah, except that I find out that this person has been doing many meets and has been doing it now for 5 years.
Well, yeah, consistency is good. It's just nice to be consistently correct.
With the introduction of the zero test years ago, okay, the accuracy of the setup of the camera has certainly increased.
It does, but because the zero test, when you fire the gun, it's at ground level. You can swivel a camera onto that line from a long way off of where it should be. I know that in 2001, and when I was down in Puerto Rico, a couple of the English-speaking people and I put a camera on the line, and we were 3 meters ahead of it. And the picture was perfect.
Yeah, and the problem is that when you do that, then you're actually, depending on which side the camera is set up, you're actually giving about a 6 centimeter differential between lane 1 and lane 8. So the guy in lane 8 could actually have won the race when the guy in lane 1 gets the win because of the way the camera's set up, and we don't want that.
Yeah.
So what's the answer to that?
Well, yeah.
What's the accurate answer to that? Because if I'm a record keeper. If I get a zero test that says 0.001, I'm accepting it.
Yeah, and you've got to, as Bob will probably tell you, unless you're setting up a primary and a secondary system on opposite sides of the track, and then doing a differential at nose height between 1, 4, and 8 between the two systems and getting really good conformity, you really can't tell.
When at a big international meet, example, when they did the World Indoors in Toronto, we had, oh God, we had 9 cameras set up on the finish line from both sides. And before that meet, we ran tests on those cameras with people going through in all the lanes and then comparing the differentials of the cameras across any one of those persons finishing. And they had to be within a very tiny spectrum. By doing that, CECO was absolutely 100% sure that everything was accurately aligned on the line.
But that's not going to happen for us in Ontario.
No.
Now,
it's
what
not-
I'm leading up to is that what I do when I'm technical manager and I walk around and I've got a camera set up on, say, the outside of the track, I walk and I stand on the line and I look up at the camera lens, and I want to be able to then take a ruler in front of my eye and have it perfectly lined up with the front edge of the finish line and the iris of that camera. Now, that may now have that camera a centimeter out on one way or another, but it's sure as hell not going to be 1.5 feet or whatever.
Yeah,
That's what
and I use a plumb line for the same reason,
Mhm.
for the same job.
And that's the only thing you can do. And to me, that should be part of somebody's job. I took it on because of my background in photo timing and doing the technical managers when I didn't see anybody else doing it.
Yeah, and Mike taught us to do.
And then Mike obviously was very emphatic about that.
Yeah. Okay, so for the purpose of this document, this is a task that the tech manager should be doing. So I think we need a line item in there that check the photo setup. But I think we would also need downstream a small procedure of how to check the photo
Well,
setup.
that brings up what I was going to mention to you. I like your article. I like the layout, but I see where on a lot of these things where we say, like, for instance, I'm looking at TM responsibilities, validate, implement specs. Then we should have behind that see appendix such and such, which then goes through what all those specs are and how to do it. Like this is a nice overview, but providing a list of tools listed OC, appendix 9, there's the list. Providing validate the check-in process, appendix Z,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that what we need to add to this is a whole series of appendices with the information that we are referring to and how to use it appropriately.
So I agree with this, but it's not, this document from my perspective is not a guide for tech managers. It's a guide for meet directors of what their expectations are when we come in. And if we say something like, well, we have to check the photo setup, it's not like, well, you never told me before or whatever. They've got this advanced information of what the expectations are to run a qualified meet for provincials and or down in the province. So I agree exactly what you're saying with the appendixes, but this, to me, that's not the purpose of this document, but we need it across the field for tech managers generically. So
Yeah, mainly because as all of us know, meet managers all have a different idea of what tech managers do. The rule book says certain things which gets interpreted various ways. Most people figure that it's just weights. You check the weight of an implement and put it out. In the United States, I know weights and measures is treated slightly differently, and there's other people who are called tech managers, and they're the ones who go out and verify hurdle positions, start line positions, and the various other things. So it's actually two different jobs.
Fully agreed.
Yeah.
So is that something that we're putting forward at the provincial level? It's sort of, it's a resourcing question.
Yeah, and it depends on how many bodies you have.
Yeah, if you have limited number of bodies and you have a lower level meet, then that's different than if you're having a Canadian championship.
Yeah.
Again, you have to sort this all out based on the level of the meet, I think.
Yes, and that's, I targeted provincial at the highest level for this document. That was the target space for it. So, you know, expectations of there's one or two people supposed to be there to be able to perform a certain level of meet, and that is some of the expectations should be up front rather than at the back end. So,
For example, this weekend, there's a meet in Ontario on Saturday at York University, and I'm part of it. And I know that the meet director has low expectations of what a technical manager should be doing. Again, that has to come into our documentation.
Yeah.
To say, no, we need something higher.
okay. So we can develop a document, and then we can position a document within each province. And excuse me. And how it gets accepted within each province is a whole another level of process, another process to do that. So, okay. So any other comments or omissions, or too much information, not enough information? I don't want to make it onerous for them to read, but I want to make it.
Well, I don't think there's enough information, Larry.
Okay.
We have to start dividing up and filling in stuff and then discussing it to come up with some sort of commonality.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is an ask for this is the people that are on here go into the document. If you're familiar how to put it up in markup or revision mode, and go through and add information where you think it's appropriate.
Yeah.
And we can combine them and take a look at them in the future as well.
Yeah, I think there's going to be, there's a left end and there's a right end, and then there's something in the middle. And we'll have to come up with some sort of commonality that we all agree on in order to do this.
That works for me. We're not going to have a meeting until next year, obviously, at this stage of the game. I apologize. I procrastinated quite well, and then I got better at it over the fall. So we'll look at going forward with something. So I'll look at middle of January. I know we're getting into a busy time, but when I finally sat down, did the document, I did it in about 4 hours. So I should have had it done earlier. But if you can just take a few hours one day, go into it, type in your changes and recommendations and anything else, and we'll combine it together. And I can merge all the comments into one document, and then we can take a look at that one sometime when I can share my screen properly here.
Larry, I think we need to do that well before the next meeting. In other words, if we have input and
Yes.
that shared input, then we need to share it and then give you comments about it before we actually have our next meeting.
Yes. Okay, so where are we here? So either we do it before Christmas or after Christmas. So if we do it before Christmas, it'll be done earlier. I will get all the pieces. I can merge them together and I can share it again to be discussed more page by page in January. So if I say December 15th, does that work for people to take a look at it and make their updates?
I need more time.
Okay. So January 7th. Approximately. I'm not looking at a calendar.
I have no response from anyone else.
No, I was wondering about what the people west of Ontario were thinking about this so far.
Peter,
Or Jane or Louise or
are they still there?
Jane Edstrom is here. I'm sorry, I didn't receive the document, so I don't have a comment at this time.
Okay, I'll send it off to you, Jane. I didn't know we were going to have you on board. Welcome.
Is Peter there?
He's there. No, I feel we should separate the technical manager for throws, because nowadays a lot of the throws are outside of the main event. So if the technical manager for throws can look out for the sector setup and the circles and so on and the equipment, that's enough, because we don't want him to run all over the place. You know what I'm trying to say? Checking hurdles, etc. That should be somebody else, in my opinion.
Okay, but there's two different things. Yes. I mean, we did discuss, two aspects of technical management besides weights and measures.
Yeah. So, Peter, are you willing to take a look at the document and add in your thoughts or give us a little bit more detail in certain areas? And
Yes, I will.
okay, awesome. And Mr. Tucker, do you have anything to do besides keep yourself busy?
Other than working 6 days a week, that's which I've been doing for the last year and a half. No,
Yeah.
not much else.
Okay, so would you be able to, like, we don't
I'll
need every,
take a look at it, and I've got a number of ideas that I'll throw on it, and then people you can look
Yeah.
at.
kick the can and go forward. That sounds good. And Mr. Caulfield?
I'll learn to read someday. I blame my teachers.
Yeah, well, if you're lucky, you got good ones, and if you weren't lucky, you didn't get the good ones. So,
I'm thinking of the ones that are on the screen right now.
yeah, my wife's in the other room. I gotta be careful.
I agree that it's a great base. My first comment would be is you got to make it a Canadian document, not an AO document.
Yes, I agree. It should be a provincial document for Canada, because I'm not
Yep.
at this stage of the game. I'm not stepping up into Canadians that level. This is to help communicate at the smaller meets and be able to do them properly with the proper expectations that one person can't do it all, or if one person does do it all, it doesn't get done very well. So,
I mean, substitute province for Ontario or AO or whatever. I mean, same thing. Same concepts apply to every province.
Yeah,
So-
so instead of AO, we just say provincial level.
Yeah.
yeah, no, I agree. That wasn't my intent, but I probably put it in there. So,
Yeah, well, your
Okay.
title for your document is technical management requirements for provincial meets. And that's what we want to do, and just keep
Yep.
AO out of it and the words provincial meets in it.
No, that works fine for me. Okay, so I'll send out the document to Jane as well. I probably, what I will do is I'll go through and make sure it's not Ontario based before I send them out. So I'll do that sometime tomorrow. We'll send them out to have a January 7th deadline for updates to come back into me, and we'll set a meeting for later than that after I merge all the documents together.
Okay, Larry.
Anything else that's on anybody's agenda or?
Merry Christmas.
I got my Santa Claus haircut today.
I see.
Yeah, it's this time of year I go in the mall, or I try not to go in the mall, but a whiny kid, I tap him on the shoulder and I just say, I'm Santa and I'm making a list. It turns around and says, I'm Jewish, I don't care. I have had that. So anyway, most of the time
Really
it's
do that to kids? Larry, do you really do that to kids?
oh yeah,
Yes, he does it to his own grandkids.
yeah.
Well, those he's entitled to, but that's pretty cool if you do it to other kids too.
Oh yeah. And I actually have had marriage proposals out of it. Yeah, life's too short to be too serious. So. Anyway, thank you very much for your time, and see you in January.
There's Peter.
Hey,
Christmas.
We can see him.
I
He
saw you.
does exist.
Oh, wow, he's just came up. Hi, Peter.
Hey, listen, one thing I want to ask, at the safety officer's role, don't you have to ask NOC or AC?
Once again, this is at the provincial level,
No,
so if we
might as well.
can't,
Why not
I
go
know.
to the national level? Think about it.
yeah, no, I fully agree at the national level, but this is focused on meets under the national level. So we put too much on them, they won't do any of it. So
So keep in mind that the introduction of a safety officer is something that we've done in World Masters Athletics for decades.
mhm.
It's been highly successful. Saving lives.
And the Jane, you might know his name, but one of the officials that was on my TM presentation a year ago, I guess now, he was saying that he thought the biggest rule was safety for a tech manager, and it's you need enough people to do all the right things. It's not that we ignore it, but we don't focus on it. So. Okay. So have a very happy season. Happy New Year.
Safe.
We'll see you shortly.
Okay, goodbye all.
Go out.
Yep.
Susan and Jane and Serge and Louise and Rob and Larry
And
and
John.
John.
Au revoir. Just for Serge. Au revoir.
Thanks, Larry.
Thanks very much.